So here we have the Florida Everglades, and it is an example of an adaptive management plan, a plan that provides flexibility so that managers can modify it as the changes occur. So South Florida's vast Everglade ecosystem extends over 12 million acres. And so this region, in which includes like not only the Everglades, but also bays and national parks, and even this big Cypress National Preserve, is home to many threatened and endangered birds, mammals, reptiles, plants alike, including Florida's beautiful panther, the puma, and of course, which we've talked about, Florida's manatee. So this almost million-acre subtropical wetland area, for which is best known for its river of grasses, is a thin sheet of water that is constantly flowing through it, almost directly 1 or 2 inches above the actual soil, and it's allowing these tall, like water-tolerant grasses to grow. 100 years of this rapid human population growth in Florida resulted in a need for lots of water and, of course, farmland, and we have had this dramatic impact on this particular region. So flood control, dams, irrigation, and the need to provide fresh water to these Floridians have led to a 30% decline in the overall water flow in the Everglades. And much of the water that does flow through the region is polluted by this phosphorus-rich fertilizer and the waste from the farms, and all of that coming from northern Florida and upstream. So cattails they thrive in this area because with this high input of phosphorus, it's choking out a lot of other native plants, and cattails like phosphorus. And the reduction of water flow and water quality is, by most accounts, basically just destroying the Everglades, period. And so we can save this natural system while still providing water to other people who need it. It's kind of the big question of the day to Florida management. The response of scientists and policymakers have been pretty much to treat the Everglades as a set of interacting systems, and then also to manage these inputs and outputs of this water and pollution cohesively. All right, so a comprehensive Everglades restoration plan included over 2,000 system-based approaches to help recover this region. And it covers about 16 counties in Florida and about 46,000 square kilometers. So another, like I said, almost 12 million acres of South Florida. And so a plan was based on these 3 key concepts. We need to increase the water flow back into the Everglades. We need to reduce pollutants, and then we need to have some developing strategies to kind of deal with all of these future problems that Florida is going to incur. So the first step was increasing the water flow, and that this is going to counteract some of the effects of this decade of drainage by the local communities. And so its goal is to provide enough water to support the Everglades aquatic and marsh system. And the plan calls for restoring natural water flow as well as natural these hydro periods, which in turn was basically we need to find a way to seasonally increase and decrease the water flow, basically mimic the natural state of the Everglades. And so its strategy included the removal of over 240 miles of inland canals and levees and water control systems that were blocked, and they basically blocked all of the natural water movement. And then water conservation will also be a crucial part in restoring this goal, because new water storage facilities and restored wetlands will basically capture and store water themselves during the rainy season, and people can use this for dry season too. So redirecting much of this 6.5 billion liters of fresh water into the system every day turned out to be not as big of a feat as they wanted. So about 80% of this fresh water will be redistributed back into the ecosystem via these wetland aquifers. So essentially what they did was the water was moving down this way, and they basically redirected it back up, just kept redirecting it back up to flow back through the actual system. So after the redirect of this aquifer system, Florida's government purchased land that was next to all of these, next to the Everglades, and so it was something like 71,000 acres. I had to look it up. Acres of land was purchased. That was the first set, and that was in the early 2000s, like 2009. And then in 2013, the government negotiated a second set of purchases, and so they bought even more land, which we now is part of Lake Okeechobee. And so the water redirection is on this really, really large scale. Okay, so that was water redirection. So to achieve the second goal, which was reducing water pollution, local authorities would now need to improve their overall water waste treatment facilities and place these restrictions on the use of some agriculture chemicals that were happening in North Florida. So marshlands are particularly affected by the absorption of nutrients and breaking down of toxins. Landscape engineers have designed and built more than 52,000 acres of artificial marsh upstream of the Everglades to essentially help reduce pollution before it actually hits the Everglades National Park. So although not all of the region has seen like water quality improvements, phosphorus concentrations there's a lot of runoff and from farms, and of course Lake Okeechobee, is meaning to lower it, but it's all still there. They essentially did not get rid of the problem. They just restored more wetlands to protect the inner Everglades system. All right, so the third goal was to address the future problems that are going to occur. And so that's part of what requires an adaptive management plan. And this is a strategy that provides some sort of flexibility so that managers can modify its future as changes occur. And an adaptive management plan is the answer to all scientific uncertainty. And any highly complex system that's multiple systems overlaying on top of each other, like the Everglades, and it's constantly changing, no matter how well we want to maintain it. It's got to have a series of unexpected consequences and weather patterns to it too. It needs to have flexible management strategies that can adapt to when we need to have some sort of restoration plan or water conservation plan involved. So in addition to this adaptive management plan that was constructed, the change of it also needs to meet some new challenges that are coming up. And one of those changes that the Floridian government took into account was climate change and global climate warming. And as the climate warms, glaciers melt and the sea level will eventually slowly rise. So much of the Everglades could basically be under seawater here shortly, which would destroy all of that freshwater habitat and all of the man-made wetland system above it. So an adaptive management plan essentially means that we need to pay attention to what works and what we can do to adjust accordingly. The Everglades restoration plan will be adjusted along the way to take care of these observations of climate change. And even though the Everglades and this plan has a lot of critics, some people are concerned that that the flow of water that the government has stopped and that all these pollution restrictions are going to hurt local farmers. And even more critics fear that the restorations projects like the Cypress National Preserve or the man-made wetlands that they've put north of it are basically not going to be funded properly. And underfunded things move very slowly. The government works at the speed of government. And so at the current farming rate in this region, there's a lot of, inconsistencies and goal restrictions. But despite all of this three-part goal system, the Everglades is essentially a milestone project. It's the conversion of government and scientists and long-term goals that have accepted scientific practices, and they're working towards a goal and restoring this huge regional area, then saving lots and lots of species. It's not too far away from us, and it's a project that if you want to go be a biologist in Florida, that you will probably be asked to work on a lot. And so, at the very least, this is just a concept that shows that the environment is made up of a lot of really interacting systems, and humans need to account for that to save our world.